Welcome back to the news at 10. The President has given the assurance that the policies being put in place will make Nigeria one of the world's best examples of emissions reduction. President Muhammadu Buhari was speaking at the opening of the high-level segment on climate change conference in Marrakesh, where more than 50 heads of states and governments are pledging their support for the Paris Climate Agreement. The United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, who is delivering his last address to the climate conference in that capacity, asked political leaders to move in search of solutions to the impacts of climate change. Our correspondent Ayola Kazim reports.
From different parts of the world are welcomed by the King of Morocco, Mohammed VI. All have come with their support for the Paris Agreement, which aims to limit greenhouse gas emissions and to work out ways to implement it. The Nigerian president urges the world leaders to take into account the impact of their inaction. He asks the international community to help Africa to fight the effect of climate change.
We have reflected our determination for green growth in my country's ambitious, intended, national, determined contribution. We have also announced our plans to reduce emission by 20% by the year 2030, with the intention of raising this target to 45% with the support of the international community. This is one of Africa's most ambitious, intended national determined contributions, convening all emissions from all parts of the economy. This commitment comes from the recognition of the grave social, economic, and environmental threats that climate change poses to humanity. In Nigeria, for example, the impact is being felt by more than 2.1 million people displaced by devastating floods that the country has continued to suffer since 2012.
The French president calls on his counterparts from the developed countries, asking them to honor the agreement which they have signed. This is coming at a time many fears the United States president-elect may pull out of the Paris Agreement once he assumes office. The French president, who was one of the architects of the Climate Pact last December, told America to commit to the pact to save the future generation from the climate destructions.
Les États-Unis,
the United States, the largest economic power in the world, the second largest greenhouse gas emitter, must respect the commitments they have undertaken. I also want to launch an appeal for perseverance. We have set ourselves the goal of limiting the increase in global temperatures to below 2 degrees and, if possible, 1.5 degrees. I can assure you here, we need to step up the pace. We need to step up the pace so that we can implement the Paris Agreement more quickly.
Pour que nous puissions mettre en œuvre l'accord de Paris plus vite qu'il n'a été prévu.
The United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, meanwhile, believes the action on climate change has become unstoppable. He says with global cooperation, the world can achieve more.
Now we have to translate these words into concrete and effective policies and actions. This is critical to protect our planet, safeguard the most vulnerable, and drive shared prosperity.
The Marrakesh summit continues till Friday.
And from protecting the planet, let's come back home here in Nigeria. And for the Cross River State government, the challenge of improving the standard of education is the government's priority. And that's why the management of the State Universal Education Team embarked on what it calls a cleanup of the sector in Cross River. The result is the discovery of about 300 unqualified teachers, most of them said to have forged certificates.
It's now a common occurrence for government to conduct a verification exercise to ascertain the status of staff. Nowadays, people get into the civil service, not on merit, but due to the political patronage, and in most cases, certificates and other vital documents tendered are not verified before employment is given. The result of a verification exercise carried out in Cross River State shows clearly that about 300 teachers in the state have no business being in the classroom.
I was shocked when I got to some schools and discovered that some teachers were very, very incompetent. And I said, when you talk about falling standard of education, there are so many factors, and that teachers are also part of it. So when you get to a school and you discover that a teacher is not able to communicate effectively, then I asked, you cannot give what you do not have. It may interest you to know that we uncovered about 252 teachers with fake certificate. I have them. I have their names.
Another challenge is the dearth of infrastructure, as most schools do not have adequate facilities to cope with the volume of students.
In the course of my inspection and monitoring of activities within the state, I discovered that most of our children sit on the floor to write, and there can never be any effective teaching and learning in that situation. And so we decided to intervene immediately.
Recruitment for new teachers, according to the state government, is ongoing, but care is being taken to get the right people in, because anything different will mean taking 2 steps forward and 10 steps back.
The chairperson of the Institute of Arbitrators here in Nigeria, Mrs. Adedoyin Rhodes-Fiver, has called for a review of the outdated laws on arbitration. She made the call today in Lagos at the public presentation of her book, Commercial Arbitration Law and Practice in Nigeria Through the Cases. The launch had in attendance judges, senior legal practitioners, captains of industry, business leaders, students, and many more.
I wanted to encourage the review of the Arbitration and Conciliation Act, which is now outdated and no longer represents international standards. I can say that the arbitral community, of which the Chartered Institute is a member, has also set up a committee right now to look into the ways of reforming that law. We've been working very hard, and we are hoping that we'll get the law, an amended law, passed in due time. In the course of my arbitration practice, I have witnessed firsthand the conduct of some of our counsel before arbitrators. I have wondered whether such counsel are fully aware of the rules of professional conduct at the bar, which clearly states that a lawyer appearing before an arbitral tribunal is expected to treat the tribunal members with the same respect, dignity, and honor accorded to courts. That motivated my writing chapter 16. In the course of my arbitration career, I've witnessed arbitration matters being locked up in the court system for several years, militating against the very reasons for entering into an arbitration clause in the first place. I have wondered why Nigeria cannot quickly fully tap into the gold mine of developing itself into a preferred arbitration destination as a means to economic development and prosperity. Indeed, there's immense economic reward in taking this step, which does not happen accidentally.
Let's take a look at some business news for the day. Here's Millicent Walker.
You first. First Bank.
Many thanks, Ijoma. Welcome to Business News. The Central Bank of Nigeria has debunked stories making the rounds on the social media insinuating that Heritage Bank is under financial distress and therefore unable to discharge its obligation to its depositors. The regulator, who described the rumor as false and malicious, has assured that Heritage Bank is not in distress and that depositors should go about their transactions without fear. The bank maintains that no Nigerian bank is in distress and has assured of the safety of their deposits. And call for intra-African trades continues to grow as the economic pressures in Africa lingers. At the CFA Investment Conference today in Lagos, financial analysts from far and wide exchanged ideas on how to realize the dream of an integrated Africa.
and want of you.
According to analyst findings, intra-African trade in the continent is currently put at 15% compared to the 50% record in Asia and 70% in Europe. For the CFA Society in Nigeria and the world over, this meeting is not only necessary to improve the trade relations in Africa, but also to actualize it ethically.
How can CFA members step up and lead the change? That is a question I want people to think about. And the three outcomes are: 1, high standards of entry and professionalism; 2, member value; and 3, building market integrity through advocacy.
What can we begin to do in the immediate to sort out these issues so that African investments can become a lot more attractive, especially to Africans? We're talking about cross-border investing. What are the issues, legal issues, tax issues, and other considerations?
These impediments in diversifying the Nigerian economy led to the creation of an inter-ministerial council on ease of doing business.
Today we're at 169. I'm not sure what the specific target is, but I'm sure it's to move down, if I'm correct, probably about 20 notches in the next 2-3 years.
When you want to go to Dubai, it's relatively easy to get a visa. You do it with minimal fuss. But you want to move within Africa, it's very difficult. I think something like that across the board would be helpful.
But what are the practical ways out?
The more ethical new entrants are into this profession, we think the more ethical the profession will eventually become.
At the end of it all, we're going to summarize everything, and the ones that we believe that the Ministry of Trade and Investment or the Nigerian government as a whole should know about, we will communicate to them.
Removing the barriers to intra-African trade goes beyond just talking. For the CFA Society, there's no better time to take the bull by the horn than now. Temple Ashaju, Channels Television News.
And Duffield Premier Foods PLC, makers of Indomie noodles, have held a press conference to announce some winners of their promo tagged "You Like No Other." The event, which took place in Lagos, doubled as a time of celebration, with 19 winners being rewarded with 100,000 naira each.
To this gathering of children, parents, distributors of Indomie and the press, the general manager of Duffield Premier Foods PLC announces the motivation for the day's celebration.
We said it's been a tough year for Nigerians. It's been a tough year for our children. Let's celebrate them. Let's recognize them. Let's reward them. As I speak to you, we have close to more than 5,000 people that have already won.
Our first lucky winner today.
It's time to acknowledge and reward faithful consumers of Indomie noodles. Each winner steps forward to receive a check of 100,000 naira, courtesy of the company.
I'm very happy to have been one of the winners today. I never thought this would come up.
That's a whole lot of money for me and my family.
Just to take care of myself and my baby. I have 2 kids.
Nigeria and Africa as a whole has to produce Sound Sultan.
An artist, Sound Sultan, talks of his experience as the brand ambassador.
What I realized when I was on the field is Indomie is like water. I tell you, in Nigeria, people love and need Indomie.
Wow! Wow! Staff of Duffield Premier Foods PLC say the promo continues till December, and the criteria for winning remain the same.
What we're asking our consumers to do is to collect the wrapper, You Like No Other promo wrapper, and once you collect up to 20, you go straight to any of our redemption centers and you get your carton of noodles, 1 carton of noodles. However, if you're able to pick 50 of them, you immediately get 2 cartons of noodles, and also you win 100,000 naira. It's instant and it's just as easy as that.
With this time frame, it appears Duffield Premier Foods will be giving out more products and cash prizes, even as they promise that the quality and quantity per pack of Indomie will remain the same.
Well, happy times for the winners in this current economic situation. Well, the Nigerian stock market suffered a 0.50% drop, with the all-share index closing at a 25,000 mark. For the details, here's Harriet Agbe.
The Nigerian equities market continued to trade sideways, with market capitalization dipping further by 40 billion naira to end Tuesday's session at 8.90 trillion naira. The all-share index was off 0.5% to berth at 25,857.06. Total value of shares traded dropped to 905.10 million naira from 1.11 billion naira recorded on Monday, as 189.72 million shares were exchanged in 2,417 deals. Standard Alliance Insurance was the most actively traded stock, with 95 million units of shares, followed by United Capital and FBN Holdings. Only 9 equities made gains today, and the top 3 were Custodian and Allied, Air Service and NACO. Down by over 8%, WAPCO led 2 major oil stocks, Corn Oil and Owando, as well as 16 other laggards for today. And those are today's trading figures. I'm Harriet Agbe.
Many thanks, Harriet. And that's it on Business News Tonight. I'm Millicent Walker. Back to you, Gemma, with the rest of the news.
You first. First Bank.
Next on the news at 10, Austrian tennis star Dominic Thiem edges closer to semi-final after a victory over Frenchman Guy Monfils at the ATP World Tour Finals. And that's on sports.